Your name, sir, and man, what the Lord has done for you.
Good evening, Koinonia. Okay, my name, this is Mr. and Mrs. Abia. I'm Abija, my wife is Dorcas. And we're the couple that God and Apostle has showed mercy. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure you understand that as I speak. Okay, so we've been married for over 9 years. We're married in 2015, 11 December, in Calabar. And we've been trusting God for the fruit of the womb. And we've prayed. In fact, when we got married, we confessed we wanted a set of twins. We started confessing every day. We'll confess. And at some point, sometimes we confess until some days we'll not confess, but we'll just resume and just kept confessing. And we saw doctors, did all of that, saw consultants and all of that. And we didn't have a child. And we now decided that we're going to just trust God wholly. I mean, there were different suggestions. I mean, someone would suggest to one of us to leave the marriage. Someone would suggest to one of us to cheat on the partner. I mean, there were different kinds of suggestions. But we held on because God gave us a ministry of family called Things We Do Together. So we prayed together. We just believed God and lived our life together. All right, so fast forward to 2020. As COVID was subsiding, God asked us to relocate from Calabar. So I resigned my job with the Tourism Bureau, where I did sponsorship and PR. So I resigned. My wife is a fashion designer. We both moved to Kefi, Nasarawa State, where we're doing our network marketing business. We thought we were doing business, but we didn't know that was the road to our testimony. So we're in Kefi for about 3.5 years or so. And then God now said it was time to move to Abuja. And by this time, I mean, when you just hear the house rent in Abuja, you know, you might have some palpitations, okay? Because you have to believe God. So the most valuable thing we had was a luxury car we had from the business that we did, which I was given as a reward. And God said to sell it and move to Abuja. And before this time, when I got to Kefi, I stumbled upon Apostle's message online, and a friend encouraged me to keep listening to him, that he knew him from Zaria and all of that. He's the present chaplain of the Chapel of Salvation in Nsuk, Pastor Thomas. And we started coming to Koinonia. We started listening online, and then we'll start driving from Kefi to Abuja and drive back to attend service. And sometimes we have to lodge in the hotel in Abuja just to attend service. We drive down, attend service, and go back. We're just doing like that, and sometimes we do online. And when God said we should move to Abuja, and we already started putting an account on GG to sell and all of that, in this period, we drove into town one day, and we're seated in church like this. An apostle announced that he wanted to pay for IVF for 20 couples. Do you remember? You remember? Okay, so fast forward, we showed up for the first training and seminar, and we've been playing this grace called Favor, my wife and I. We said we'll find favor. We're new in Abuja, we're new in church. I mean, we just barely come into church. Who do we know? We don't know anybody to call. We don't know anybody to speak to. And we just trusted God. And on that faithful day, they finished the first session, and they said they picked the first 50. If you don't get an SMS, sorry. And we didn't get an SMS, so we headed for home. And God intervened, because they called us that your name is on the list. You're not in the hall. And we're like, we didn't get an SMS. They said it must be an error or something on network. Please come back to the hall. So we went back to DOA, and that was how we were interviewed, and finally we made the list. So we made it to Jos. Our screening was in Jos with Dr. Ken. We came back, and we were assigned one of the best fertility clinics in Abuja, free of charge, all paid by Apostle.
Are you celebrating the Lord?
Okay. All right, so by this time, before we left Calabar, we saw a fertility specialist, and they told us the options, they told us money. So we just said, okay, let's go and look for money first. So when we have the money, we'll do the IVF. But the money was never complete. We never found the money until this fateful time. We went through the process. Long story cut short, it was successful. Even the doctors, I don't know if Dr. Shaibu is in the house. I mean, he comes here. Yes, that was our specialist. And at the end of the day, the process was successful. And this was the first time we're trying this process. And it worked. And the doctors were telling us, people have tried 10 times and it didn't work. People have tried 14 times and it didn't work. And it worked. And this is how I link it all. When we first came to Koinonia, when I stepped into this hall, God told me, your help is here. And when I got home, I told my wife, I said, This is what Daddy said. He said, our help is here. So we didn't know what to make of, whether it's in Abuja, it's in Koinonia. I shall know that my help is here. So he kept coming. And when we got to wait for 14 days to test with the pregnancy, that was the longest 14 days in our 9 years of marriage, you know. And every day we bought test kits, we tested, it was positive. Thank you so much, Pastor Promise. I call him the follow-up pastor. I don't know what you call him. He was following up every day. Pastor Kenny, thank you so much. We belong to the prayer department. So we're praying. Thank you. You know, so they are wonderful people. Pastor Kenny, Pastor Promise will check on me. Sometimes like, how far? Wifey. If that's all he can say, he just kept checking up. And we prayed. And on the 14th day, we showed up at the hospital. And for the first time in over 9 years, my wife was pregnant. Now that's not all. So they gave us some time to come back, I think 2 weeks later, to now confirm the number. And then we'll take it from there. And we said, God, we're trusting you for twins. That's what we said. We confessed this for over 9 years. And at the end of the day, we got into that room with Dr. Shaibu and his team. And lo and behold, there were 2 sacks we saw. So my wife was pregnant for twins. And the last on that row is that we told God we wanted a boy and a girl. So we did scan, and the scan said they saw the boy, but they didn't see the other gender. And when we got to the final hospital where we were going to give birth, the sonographer said he saw 2 boys. I said, well, my deal with God is that there's a boy and there's a girl. As a matter of fact, before my wife had conceived, before we even got to get this offer, this blessing from Apostle, God came to me one day. I was praying and fasting at home, and he gave me their names, Ebenezer for the boy and Heziba for the girl. Yeah, so I was approaching this I wasn't approaching this with my mind. I was approaching this with thus saith the Lord. And I held on to that. I told the sonographer, your machine saw a boy, 2 boys, but I see a boy and a girl. God has given me that. I said, that's what I see. Just keep trusting God. We kept confessing. And on that day, which was the 9th of January, which happened to be my birthday, yes. So on the 9th of January, you know, before we knew what was happening, it was a CS, because the consultant said we can't risk her having vaginal birth, so it's going to be a CS. But they just came into the room and said, we're ready. It's a military facility. And they just acted like military men. We're ready. Before we knew, when we said Jack, they gave her the cloth, she wore the cloth and everything, and she was in the chair. Before 8:30 a.m. in the morning, we had our testimonies, Ebenezer and Heziba in our hands.
Are you celebrating the Lord?
Can you help me celebrate this, Jesus? Thank you so much, Apostle. Thank you, Jesus, for this testimony, because this is just but the hand of God. There are some things that God does, and like a father will say, he signs off as God. And then there's no argument. And a few days later, after the birth, my wife's BP skyrocketed. It became crazy. And I'll call my pastors in prayer department. I said, we're back in the hospital. And for 5 days, we're in the hospital. And let me tell you the miracle that happened. They said they were going to transfuse blood to my wife, that she suddenly lost blood. They said there was an infection. They just called all sorts of things. Even the doctors and the nurses started just saying, that the devil is a liar. They gave birth to twins, and what are you going to say? My mom was at home with the 2 kids, and I was in the hospital back with my wife. And just at the point, it took us a while to agree to transfuse. It was my blood, actually, but it took us a while to agree. And when we agreed, I already sent Pastor Kenny and Pastor Promise the messages that this was the situation. I think I even sent to Daddy that this was the situation. But at the point where the doctor, the nurse, carried the pints of blood and the equipment to transfuse, here comes Pastor Kenny's call. And he called right on time. And I told him, sir, this was, and he just said, Abijah, I'm just seeing your messages. And he prayed and declared. And the blood was transfused. There were no reactions. Nothing happened. At the end of the day, my wife got back home. And to God be the glory, the blood pressure is dropping. And I know it's going to crash back to normal. So I'm here to say that these are the babies through which Apostle and God partnered together to show us mercy. We are grateful, sir. We are grateful because the love in this house is real. I know you've been to places. We didn't know anybody. We just relocated to Abuja. And one of the reasons for relocating was because God said, yes, you have a call to ministry. You've been doing things. I want you to come here to be trained, and I'll take you global. But God started by just telling me that this is where your help is. And I just submitted myself. I just come here every day with my wife. And trust me, we don't know anybody, but the love that we felt, right from our father to the pastors in the prayer department, everybody, you've just been awesome. And a few days after, I finally had admission to the Koinonia School of Ministry. Yes, I applied last year, I couldn't get it, and I got the admission. I did the registration, and when I just saw that the burden of trying to settle with two of them, I just had to defer the admission to next year. But that's what God has done, and we've come here to return all the glory. So I bring you love from my father, I bring you love from my mother, my parents-in-law, and all my family members, Apostle. They are so excited. They are so excited, and I'm sure one day they'll meet you to say thank you in person. So, Koinonia, behold Ebenezer and Hephzibah.
Can we join them in celebrating the Lord? I'm sure you can go on and on and on, testifying of God's goodness, His power, His faithfulness, His love. Can we lift our hands and give God all the praise and all the glory? This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our sight. Somebody bless the Lord, just like God's servant, our Father and the Lord, taught back in Zaria. It is God-man partnership. God-man partnership for the fulfillment of your destiny. Somebody exalt the Lord. Magnify the name of the Lord. Give Him praise. Come with words. Magnify the name of the Lord for these mighty works of God. Come see the wonders of our God, the one who does wonders without number. Lord, we bless your name tonight. Who is like unto thee, O God? Among the gods, who is like thee? Glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, always doing wonders. Koinonia, can you give the Lord a loud shout of praise?